Over 40 crowd, are we struggling with muscle cramps, poor sleep, or low energy? You might be missing one key mineral, magnesium. And trust me, most of us are deficient. In this episode of Over 40 Fitness Hacks, I sit down with Patrick Sullivan Jr. from Jigsaw Health Supplements to uncover why magnesium is the unsung hero of health. From improving sleep and recovery to balancing blood pressure, reducing muscle cramps, we break down the science behind this essential mineral. Plus, Patrick shares his best types of magnesium to take and how to optimize your intake for peak performance. If you're looking for an easy hack to feel better and recover fast, this is the episode for you. Let's dive in. How's it going? This is Brad Williams with Over 40 Fitness Hacks Podcast, the podcast where I help you, being over 40, to fight the aging process without giving up your social life. So I want to talk about this new SKOOL program I just built. It's free for the first 100 members. What SKOOL is, SKOOL, is a program that is a classroom-based tutorial website tied in with something very similar to a Facebook group, but on steroids. This social media platform has blown up since last January, and I just got in and finished my classroom. What it is I'm taking my Over 40 Fitness Hacks podcast and just putting it into this now community-based driven platform so I can provide tutorials on everything I know. Put the link to this in my show notes. Thanks for listening, and hopefully I'll see you inside. Patrick, thank you for coming on my show. We've got a lot of questions about magnesium. I've been getting real involved with finding out who my supplement providers are for the last couple of years, knowing that there's regulations on all this stuff, but there's ways to get around it that I'm finding out talking to all these experts. So I love getting a guest with us in the supplement world. And I've been using magnesium supplements for a while and finding that it's helped lower my blood pressure, getting better sleep, some of the things you're probably going to be talking about. But yeah, we want to dive into everything you got. So let's start off with how you even got into this field, and then we'll move on to some of the fun stuff. So I'll let you take it away.
Well, Brad, thanks for inviting me to be on your show. It's fun to get to talk to the youthful over 40 nation. I myself at 47 am definitely getting more and more serious about my own personal health. I think it was more 45 for me 2 years ago that I started to be like, something's changing here. For others, it's 35. For others, it's 40. But hey, everybody out there listening, life is too short to feel crappy, and it's way more fun to feel healthy and happy.
Exactly.
So let's focus on that. And I'm happy to talk about my favorite mineral and hopefully yours, magnesium. It's amazing what it does in the body. It's often quoted that magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions. But it turns out that number was from the 1950s, and it was from Professor Bert Valley at Harvard Medical Professor, and it was his best guess at the time. More recently, magnesium medical researcher Morley Robbins has discovered that magnesium is involved in at least 3,751 biochemical reactions. Morley calls magnesium the conductor of the orchestra of the symphony that is happening inside of your body. So is magnesium important? Seems like it.
Yeah. Well, I just know from doing my own research and using a lot of nutrition trackers. I used to write this all in hand on a chart, looking up the RDAs and Googling all the food components and supplements I was using. And what I found for a lot of clients and friends and family was we're all deficient in magnesium. We're all deficient in potassium, deficient in zinc, copper, all this stuff. And it's hard to grasp all the different vitamins and minerals. So I always just tell people to start with one. Potassium's a good one. Magnesium's a great one. Calcium, if you are deficient in that, and go from there. But some of the things I mentioned was lowering my blood pressure and a little bit quality of sleep. What are some of the things that you put out there with your product? I saw about leg cramps, and everyone's had that at some point in their life.
Yeah. My dad and I started Jigsaw Health in 2005. So we're close to celebrating. Next year will be our 20th birthday. And magnesium, we have gained a special affinity for it. Magnesium and potassium in particular are two of the 5 electrolytes that we generally don't get enough of in our food supply. The food supply in America has really gone rotten over the last 40 years. And as a result, we end up feeling a lot more clenched. And let me explain what I mean by that. So magnesium and calcium are like two kids on a teeter-totter. Calcium clenches and magnesium relaxes. So if you think of high blood pressure, it's literally the arteries and the veins being so tense because it's so much easier to get calcium from food than it is to get magnesium. Jigsaw Health, we don't even sell a calcium supplement because we typically just don't recommend it. It's so easy to get from food. Magnesium, on the other hand, a lot more difficult to get from food. You brought up potassium and sodium have a similar relationship on that teeter-totter. Sodium, we all have seen sodium listed on the food labels of so many products.
Hmm.
Sodium is pervasive in our food. And yes, sodium is an electrolyte that we have to get, but it needs to be in balance with potassium. Otherwise, too much clenching, not enough relaxing. And one of the things that I have learned specifically about magnesium and potassium is that they cause two different types of muscle cramps. One of the questions people ask very frequently is, Patrick, how can I know if I'm deficient in potassium or magnesium? Unfortunately, most of the blood tests are not really a reliable marker, but what is muscle cramps? And there's two types of muscle cramps. So if you're cramping in the middle of lifting weights or playing pickleball, a sport that I certainly love, and you start to cramp up, that's a sign of a potential potassium deficiency. However, if you start to cramp up after the fact, or like those painful Charlie horses in the middle of the night, that's a sign of a potential magnesium
Ooh.
deficiency. And one of the things that I've pointed out to people is that is why bananas at night doesn't fix the nighttime leg cramp problem.
Wow. What about the third type, which my audience who listen to me know we like to party with rules, but say on a Saturday night we go a little too much, wake up in the morning, try to stretch a little bit, and oh, the meanest calf cramp you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, obviously some dehydration going on, but what am I lacking in that scenario that's causing these vicious calf cramps?
That is a great question. And it's really just another version of the second kind of cramp. You're not in the midst of activity and it's a cramp that comes up out of nowhere. That's a magnesium
Magnesium.
deficiency. Or I should say, just to be sort of careful and clear here, it's likely to be a magnesium deficiency. There could be other choices. The good news is you can try magnesium, whether it's our brand or any other brand. There's a lot of good magnesium products out there. And in the case of that leg cramp that you get, one of the products that we sell at Jigsaw Health is called Mag Relief. And it's a magnesium lotion using magnesium chloride that is specifically for targeted muscle relief. And part of the reason that we have that is certainly there are times where I myself have my magnesium intake.
Hmm.
So 2.5 hours on a pickleball court. And then later when I'm getting ready to go to bed, it's like I feel it in my calves or my feet. It's like, yeah, I need to put some magnesium lotion on, Mag Relief on before this kicks in.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure it's faster acting, which how long is it going to take a pill to alleviate your problem there? So,
Yeah, a pill, a powder, internal intake of magnesium is partially what our bodies are designed for. If you look sort of at the evolutionary process, we've been eating and drinking food and water that has magnesium. We also tend to love the ocean, and the ocean has magnesium in it. So, transdermal absorption of magnesium is a real thing. It's one of the reasons people love Epsom salt baths so much. Epsom salts is magnesium, although for what it's worth, my friend Jared has a company called Enviromedica Ancient Minerals that has I think, much better magnesium bath flakes than your typical sort of drugstore Epsom salt.
Epsom
So
salt.
people who love their baths and loves to relax, and I think we all should probably be more specific and more intentional with our relaxation, highly recommend the magnesium bath flakes from Ancient Minerals.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I've had a guest before on my show talk about magnesium oil, and I can't remember if he was mentioning for like athletes putting that on before the event or specifically after the event, or is there any benefit to taking it before? Or what other timing would magnesium oil be beneficial than just having your RDA of food and supplements magnesium?
With magnesium oil, I think the best time to take it is likely after the fact for recovery. Magnesium oil, I find it's a little bit more challenging to apply, and it has sort of when it dries, a flakiness that makes it just messy. So I prefer magnesium lotion to magnesium oil. One of the things I know that can be done is like a magnesium oil in water foot soap that you then are getting through your feet, magnesium uptake. I don't know necessarily the studies on that. And I think also you mentioned the magnesium RDA. One of the challenges with any sort of transdermal application is it's a lot more hard to judge how much you're getting. And the RDA, really what is referred to as the RDI, recommended daily intake
Mhm.
from the FDA, is currently 420 milligrams a day for adult male or female. However, Mildred Seelig, a doctor who wrote a book called Magnesium Factor, she came up with a different formula for judging how much magnesium you need. Because remember, the FDA, they're concerned with minimum.
Yeah.
You need to get a minimum of 420, right? Well, what if I want to be optimal? How
Yeah.
much should I be taking then? Mildred Seelig described a formula that says basically 5 milligrams of magnesium per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, 2 times 500, 1,000 milligrams per day, almost 2.5 times what the FDA recommends as the recommended daily intake. And so if you're, well, I don't know how much is in this oil or this lotion, you could use a supplement like Jigsaw Health Mag SRT, which has 500 milligrams per 4 tablets, or a Jigsaw Mag Soothe, which is our nighttime fast-acting magnesium powder, uses magnesium glycinate, and that has 200 milligrams. So what your baseline is, and then what I like to do after I use those two supplements is fill in the rest with food.
Yeah.
The top 3 foods for magnesium are all nuts, pumpkin seeds, cashews, and almonds.
Wow.
And then, of course, a little nighttime treat of squares of dark chocolate, each of which generally will contain about 70 milligrams of magnesium. So that's how I'm reaching 1,000 milligrams per day.
Yeah. And just like we all know, I mean, it's hard to get up to those optimal levels. And on my show, I'm real careful because I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but I like using RDAs as a bench line and then tell people do your own research because I personally like low level biohacking and I'll push the limits on things that I read, just such as certain studies like you mentioned, or at least Google what is the toxic level of each one. Now you do not go past that because we've got studies on that. And that toxic level is so much higher than the RDA that we're given. So just do things in increments, see how you feel, and everyone's different. That's what I promote on the show. But for myself, I take higher amounts of potassium than what's talked about. I take and make sure the ratio of sodium and potassium hits like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio, magnesium and calcium. And I have trouble with calcium because I can't have milk protein. So I've cut all dairy, all that kind of stuff. So, but like you said, most of America has no problem with that one. But as far as the magnesium in your product, or at least for the leg cramps, what is it bound to? There's magnesium glycinate, magnesium. I don't even know the names of all these, but each one of them has like a specific property that usually helps with something else. What is your favorite that you use with your product?
Yeah, what type of magnesium should I use is probably one of the most common questions that we get. And I have 3 preferred kinds that I like and 2, maybe 3 that I generally stay away from. So let's start with the ones that I like the best and what they're bound to and what they do. So magnesium malate is magnesium bound to malic acid. And this is a somewhat energizing form of magnesium. Jigsaw, we use that in our Mag SRT formula. And it's generally recommended to take Mag SRT in the morning with food or at lunch with food for that energizing effect that you get from magnesium malate. The second kind is magnesium glycinate, which is magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. And glycine has a little bit of a calming effect on the brain. That's why we use magnesium glycinate in Jigsaw Mag Soothe. It's a nighttime magnesium powder that helps to calm that brain chatter. The third form that we use and recommend is magnesium L-threonate. This is a form that is magnesium bound to threonic acid, and it has some interesting studies from MIT showing uptake in the brain, getting past the blood-brain barrier. We sell that as Jigsaw Brain Boost. I typically will take that at lunch. Not a high amount of magnesium, but the threonic acid in and of itself has some really interesting properties. So those 3 forms, magnesium malate, magnesium glycinate, magnesium L-threonate, those are really my favorite forms of magnesium. Now, the forms of magnesium that I generally recommend people to stay away from would be, number 1, magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate is very common, but it's used oftentimes in medical applications as to prepare you for a colonoscopy. Fun. Exactly. Number 2 would be magnesium oxide. Studies show that it's only about 4% bioavailable. It's also very inexpensive. So if you see a blend of magnesium or just magnesium oxide by itself, it's really not very good. And I do recommend people stay away from that one. The third one would actually be magnesium chloride when it's in a dietary supplement application where you're ingesting it. Similar, low absorbability, can cause some GI distress, not so great. Magnesium chloride, however, on the skin, very good, very tolerable, a great form of magnesium for the skin. So that's about as best as I've ever given that summary.
Yeah. But so what's the type of magnesium?
We should clip that. That sounded good.
Yeah, I will. What type of magnesium is in your lotion for after an event, you're getting the cramps?
Jigsaw Mag Relief uses magnesium chloride because of the studies showing how well magnesium chloride goes through the transdermal, the skin layer, and then affects and improves the muscle relaxation effect.
Okay. And then for your help with soothing down at the end of the night, remind me which magnesium combos work with that one for better sleep?
For calming brain chatter, for better sleep, for dealing with those Charlie horses, which I grew up having as a kid all the time, we recommend Jigsaw Mag Soothe, which uses magnesium glycinate, the calming form of magnesium bound to glycine.
Okay. And what about the relationship from all my studies and what I've talked about with people? There's that dance, like you just mentioned, potassium and sodium, copper and zinc, and then magnesium and calcium. If you're taking all these magnesium supplements, do you need to step up your game with calcium supplements or eating more calcium? Or is there not much of a drawback of lifting one up versus the other and not being in a perfect range?
It's an ongoing process to balance our minerals.
Yeah.
We never set it and forget it. And so I suppose there is a realm somewhere where someone has inflated their amount of magnesium and underdone their calcium, and they would need to start supplementing with calcium. And I think that person would have trouble flexing,
Okay.
gripping, essentially contracting the muscle. That's what that person, someone deficient in calcium, would see. One of the other things that we have been told, thanks to the US dairy lobby, is that calcium builds strong bones. And it does, but it doesn't do it alone.
Yeah.
It uses magnesium and boron and a host of other minerals in the bone matrix. Years ago, someone said to me, Patrick, if you took a piece of chalk, which is calcium carbonate, and you drop that piece of chalk on the ground, what would happen to it? Well, I'm old enough, and your audience is old enough to remember our teachers using chalk. And sometimes a piece of chalk would fall. And what happened to it? It cracked. It was totally brittle, right? So calcium alone doesn't build strong bones, but calcium is an essential electrolyte. I mentioned earlier, there's 5 electrolytes: calcium, number 1, magnesium, number 2, potassium, number 3, sodium, number 4, chloride, number 5. Those are the essential electrolytes. And years ago, a woman said to me, what you're saying about magnesium makes a lot of sense. Can I get addicted to it? And I thought, that is a really good question. You know what, ma'am? You already are.
If you're asking it.
Not even if you're asking it. Our bodies require electrolytes, these electrically charged minerals, in order to operate.
Yeah. I think you do the best you can with matching things to where they should be from whatever research you're going by, mostly how you feel. But I think in the end, our bodies can regulate a lot of that stuff too, which is a lot of times people will talk about careful with buying too many supplements or it's just expensive pee, right? But I think as long as you're taking an hour one hit throughout the day, all this stuff, that your body has a chance to do it. It'll regulate what it needs to. It's just more of hitting those toxic levels of anything, which takes crazy amounts. So, I mean,
Yes.
people got to be slamming pills and eating one type of food that's high in something that they probably shouldn't. So I think other than that, just supplement what you're deficient in and let your body do the rest is at least a starting point. And then you can work with your
Yeah.
doctor on any other issues.
Yeah, I think there is a irrational fear of supplementing with too much. And I say irrational not to say it's not justified. It's just there isn't a rationality to that fear because more than likely our bodies are going to push out normally through our either urine or, well, we're going to throw up or we're going to poop it out
Yeah.
if we take too much. And what you said, I agree with. The body is an amazing, amazing device, machine, whatever you want to refer to it as. It has so much capability to figure out, yeah, I'm going to steal a little bit from this to do this, and I'll borrow a little bit of this in order to do that. And thank God it knows how to do that because we couldn't do
No,
it.
look it up.
We would screw it up. We would screw it up for sure. So I like telling people Mildred Selig's recommendation on an optimal amount of magnesium, which once again, 5 milligrams per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 100 pounds, that would equate to 1,000 milligrams per day. I like people to have that sort of in their mind. And then for people to realize, you know what, the more pumpkin seeds and cashews and almonds that I'm eating, the better. And by the way, almonds and cashews are actually very high in calcium as well.
Hey, that's what I talk about too. Try to get the most you can from food, what you're willing to do. Track it. Oh, I'm deficient in this or that. Maybe Google it, which I like doing. See what types of foods have the highest amount of whatever you're deficient in. See if you'll incorporate that in. But just like you mentioned earlier in this podcast, and I believe it too, just the way the US is going, our farming practices, these minerals are being leached out of this ground. We're replanting. We're not getting the same type of stuff that we had in previous decades, centuries. And I don't see it stopping either because population's growing. We're going to be in space soon. We're going to have floating cities in the water. Like, it's just going to be real hard. So supplementation, it's just got to be a thing that's going to keep going.
Well, my hope is that the almost out of nowhere Make America Healthy Again movement is hitting on all the right cylinders at the right time. And in fact, I'm working with a documentarian to make a documentary called Breaking Big Food, working with a number of the big players in that world and a number of very small players at the local level. Because Breaking Big Food, the subtitle is How the American Food System Went Rotten
Yeah.
and How It's Being Revived. I think that there really is a turnaround, pivotal moment that is happening in this country where people, especially millennials, are waking up to, we grew up with Frosted Flakes and all of the lot of it is garbage.
Mm.
The food pyramid is upside down and it was designed by Big Ag in order to sell more corn and more grain. And people are waking up and looking around at all of the issues and saying, I know that correlation and causation are two different things, but hot damn, there's a lot of correlation going on.
Well, that's this whole era of social media, internet in the last 20 years. Like, people are voicing all this stuff because unless someone's going to make a huge amount of money or big farmers in control of it, like that never used to get put out there. And I think podcasts, and just all this messaging and private companies doing their own research and that great stuff. Now it's a lot more people talk about this stuff. A lot more people are getting on the bandwagon of, God, this American diet, it's trash. We need to start taking health into our own hands. And just for myself, being a personal trainer for the last 15 years, we were never taught this stuff in the beginning. We just cared about protein and muscle. And that did good for us. But now over 40, oh God, there's all these other issues that are, you mentioned 45. I started falling apart at 30. So, and having successes with talking to people, fixing certain things in my diet or supplementation or just
Awesome.
different workout theories. Oh my
Yeah.
God. And just like your shirt says, it's fun to feel good. Man, it's to feel good every single day versus what it felt like in my mid 30s. Just awesome.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm happy that you discovered that, took a fork in the road and said, I'm not going to live the back half of my life the way that I feel right now. And that message of empowerment is so important for your audience to hear. About 20 years ago, Jordan Rubin, the founder of Garden of Life, a very big supplement brand, wrote a book called Patient Heal Thyself. And I think that the words and the message in that book is as true today as it was 20 years ago. What you need is inside of you. It starts with mindset
Mm-hmm.
and it starts with attitude and the choices that you make. And then you add things on top of that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, but it takes a pivotal moment to get thrown in that direction because
Yeah.
all these young 20-year-olds, same here. But once you have that moment, the body can recover. It can go backwards. It's awesome what it can do. So it's never too late. That's what I always like to say.
There's a woman on our team who runs most of our social media accounts for Jigsaw Health, and she did a meme, popping bottles in your 20s. It's like
Yeah.
a picture of people in the club, and then popping bottles in your 30s. It's like literally vitamin supplement.
Yeah, paying for all that damage.
That's right. You can find that on the Jigsaw Health Instagram for anybody that wants to find that meme and share it. But got a lot of actions and a lot of reactions of people saying, yep, I hear you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Patrick, let's talk about social media, your website, any other projects you're working on. What do you want to tell my audience? How do they get a hold of you? How do they check out this product?
Yes, thank you. Jigsawhealth.com is the website, and all of our products are available there. They're also available on Amazon, but Amazon takes a big fee. So we'd certainly appreciate developing a relationship with you on our website. And by the way, that's the same for every single small business owner. I don't know about you, but I've really started to buy from the websites rather than from Amazon. Amazon's fee it's variable, but it's anywhere from 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really makes a big difference. So I would throw that out there and encourage you when you're doing your holiday shopping to think about that with all your purchases that you're making. And then a fun thing for your audience would be our team last year worked on a different documentary called Breaking Pickleball. And it's the story of season 1 of the Arizona Pro Pickleball League. I'm in it. My wife's in it. We were the founders, the creators. As I mentioned, I'm a big pickleball nut. But that documentary just got picked up by Amazon Prime Video about, 2-3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
It's binge worthy. Even if you don't like pickleball, it really is a human story of these various local pros, these underdogs trying to win the championship. And I couldn't be more proud of what the team put out. And it's been fun. And it was really somewhat what inspired us to say, okay, maybe we need to break something a little bigger. And that's why we're working on the documentary Breaking Big Food, which we hope to release in July of 2025.
Awesome. Definitely check that out on Prime. As my audience knows, I'll put all those links in the show notes of what currently is here, the website, social media, and the current documentary. And just on that note of buying from Amazon, people usually feel safe doing that the first couple times, and that's fine. But I've found if you've listened and you believe in someone's business, met the founder, usually if you're going to be taking this on a monthly deal, there's always a subscribe and save within that company to get to those lower prices anyway. So I like helping out too. And if I can, I'll switch to the actual company. So appreciate you mentioning that.
For sure. Thank you so much for doing that, Brad. That means a lot to me and so many other small business owners. I promise you that.
Absolutely. Well, Patrick, I just want to thank you for coming on my show and just educating us. Part of the reason I'll never stop doing this is just selfishly stepping on my own game and my own overall health, but also I'd like to help people and make sure this knowledge gets out in a good format. So thanks again for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. And I will be sure to send you some Jigsaw Magnesium goodies so you can report to your audience how they're making you feel.
Awesome.